Welcome again to Nampo 2025, the biggest agricultural and farming exhibition, expo and conference in the Southern Hemisphere every year. Every year about 90 to 100,000 people come through the turnstiles here at Bothaville in the Northern Free State to not only celebrate the annual grain harvest, but also to address and talk about issues in the agricultural sector. We talked to the head of Agri SA in a short while, but first we spoke to AgriBusiness at Absa about what it is that their stakeholders are asking, particularly as global issues are starting to challenge South Africa's agriculture and maybe new markets becoming a thing of the future.
I think if you look at South African agriculture, it's broadly made up out of three subsectors, the grain and oilseeds, the horticulture and the livestock. I think, Nampo, brings together livestock as well as the grain and oilseeds. It is a harvest festival, and it forms a big part of the South African agricultural landscape. But I think then if I take a step back and from Absa's perspective, we're the biggest lender in the industry, and it's important for us to show that we are here, we're committed to it. It allows us also an opportunity to link with our clients, get feedback from them around what's currently happening on the ground. And I think it also allows clients then to gather some information, to talk to OEMs and manufacturers and the latest trends. So I think it's an important event, and Grain SA does a marvelous job with Nampo.
Aubrey, the world is changing and surely customers are asking questions around, especially the theme this year being agriculture globally but locally. What is it that you're telling your customers about how to harness these networks, how to look at technology and innovation to perhaps harness the best possible agricultural environment?
Yeah, Gary, so I think we are a player in the global industry, and it does come from local. And I think, let me start by saying, the South African producer, we should be very proud of them around what they achieve. I think what we've seen recently is some of the events, the geopolitical events, some of the tariffs, out of the US. We are part of this global, so it's important for us to understand that we are a player in this. I think if I just look at some of the exhibitors here, I believe that there's some 900 odd from them. A lot of them are also multinational, they're not. So it's really around, having that opportunity to look at ideas, share it, get solutions, talk about it, and it facilitates, dialogue and discussion and hopefully collaboration, I think we should always have an eye on the global, environment as well, because it does have a real impact on us.
In terms of global advances, one has to look at technology and artificial intelligence. What is it that customers want to know from you? What are you telling customers? How are you helping the agriculture and farmer individual in South Africa understand, navigate that better, but also look at how it impacts not only their local produce, but possible new markets?
Yeah, Gary, so I think technology, that's the game changer, but I think it's not only any technology, it needs to fit and it needs to create a value or a benefit, so I think it's important. I think it's an excessively fast-changing environment. We've seen in the last couple of years lots of entries, lots of new technology, refinement of existing technology, and it's really, the bank help you to understand the viability of some of these technology. We help with some of that viability studies to see whether it makes sense. And I think, with the technology in agriculture will just move faster and faster. I think the one big advantage, it allows young people to enter this sector. It creates this opportunity and different, alternatives to specific jobs that you can do in this industry. But we, as a bank, we're experimenting with quite a bit of technology at the moment. We're looking at satellite data, there's drones, and it's really around some of that information and the algorithms and what that tells you and make you more efficient. But then I think there's also platform businesses We are a shareholder in what is called Kula app, which organize value chains and put them together, create the marketplace and an input place and a funders, platform. So it's really, bringing that together. But then there's also the development in terms of biotechnology, seed and making sure that, we are exposed to climate. So it's very important that technology also, stay abreast.
Aubrey, perhaps the most significant aspect that your customers are looking for as a financial institution is agricultural financing. So what role do you play here, not only at Nampo, but perhaps more broadly in the industry to help the community with financing models?
Yeah, Gary, so I think let's take a step back and look. I mean, food security is very high on government's agendas right across the world, I think especially with some of these trade patterns shifting and being an imbalance at the moment, people are worried, and it's very important that the food security, is at the forefront. But then I think if you also think about the last couple of years, there's been so much shocks to the system. So it's really around, the ability to support clients through this cycle, because we know that the variability in agriculture is fairly high. Variability equals risk. So it's really that ability to support clients, through these cycles. It's also that, we've got Dr. Marlene Louw in our information desk. So it's really around some of that information and providing data points back to clients to help them, with planning. And we've seen, in this environment, you need to plan and plan and plan again. But really it's around, we understand the importance of this sector to the South African economy. We understand it as part of the Absa. We're sizable in this. And we therefore, are very mindful of these cycles.
The issues of the United States warning of tariffs against South African exports, particularly in the agricultural sector, might not be that serious for the farming communities, but there are some verticals in agriculture that might be affected. But it's also, as many people are saying here at Nampo 2025, a boer maak 'n plan. So people are making plans to look for new markets and new ways of doing things.
What a month. I think from the 2nd of April, when we've seen the announcement of the Liberation Day tariffs, everyone reeled from the shock. I think there's been some recovery. We also saw a reprieve in the 90-day pause period coming into effect. And what that has really helped us to do is think tactically about what could be solutions if a 30% would be reintroduced in July. But what we've come to realize, thinking through all the different subsectors, is that it's not all doom and gloom. If you take something like soybeans, we have a substantial crop on land at the moment. In 2018, when we saw the tariff war between the US and China for the first time, South Africa weren't able to capitalize on the opportunity specifically in the soybean sector because we didn't have a trade protocol with China. Since then, we've negotiated a trade protocol with China in 2022. In 2023, we exported quite a substantial amount of soybeans to China. And so these trade disruptions between specifically the US and China has now reintroduced some of the opportunities of the first trade war that Southern Hemisphere producers could potentially capitalize on. And we think that's encouraging for the longer term growth of the oilseed sector within Southern Hemisphere producers.
So the social responsibility in the agribusiness sector is basically making sure that everyone is included, that should be included. In the South African context, we have vast areas of land that are in the hands of developing farmers and mainly really not performing at par with the established commercial farmer. And there's a number of reasons for that. So what we do as Absa is to try and solve for those reasons so that we can be financially inclusive, be able to lend to the developing sector and also bring them on board as part of the segment that we serve as Absa. And that talks of sustainability, because for one, you're able to produce food from all the land that is available to produce food in the country. You use all the human resources that are available to produce food in the country, and you get everyone involved and give them the opportunity to do business in the sector. So that is the sustainability part of the sector. But then the sector that we operate on is dependent on the climate, is dependent on the weather. It's quite variable. So you need to be able to manage the risks that are associated with that. And we've got a big focus on that in trying to assist our clients to deal with the environmental pressures, the climate pressures. A lot of it talks really to the efficiency in how you run your businesses. How efficient are you in managing your water resources, your soil resources, your livestock resources, and all the resources that you're working with in face of the changing climatic environment. We've got quite a large work going on right now to understand what our clients are doing, how can we measure it effectively and be able to assist them to improve in those efficiencies.
All role players in the agricultural community speak with one voice when it comes to the importance of development for the future. We spoke to one of the participants here at Nampo who takes development of particularly stock and grain farmers in emerging economies very seriously across South Africa.
The good that we can take out of it, if you can, is that we need to get our house in order, and we need to rethink our marketing strategy as South Africa in agriculture and the impact that we have. So I think a big concept to kind of get your mind over, and I think the main thing is we should not fear. So as agriculture, you know that we used to risks, and it's just another risk. Is it a big impact? For sure it's a big impact. But if we're going to get lame about the tariffs, we're not going to succeed. So, and I think it started to happen already. The markets all over all the markets are to a certain extent impounded by tariffs. So there's new markets going open because they're also battling tariffs. And I think that's the counterpart of the tariffs. That's kind of you strategize in a different ways in the past. And none of us know. The uncertainty is, I think, the biggest driver in tariffs. So, rethinking the whole trade industry and the whole trade concept in the world is not just South Africa, and then our role play as South Africa. What I can say about South Africa itself is we've been in America a few weeks ago, and strategically South Africa plays a major role in trade in Africa and as a trade partner. So strategically, we are significant, and I think that's a big message. The other thing is, I think what we also understood is we need to have a relationship with America. Even though we differ geopolitically, we need to have a relationship, and we need to work beyond our differences, because food security is a big thing. And whenever you put tariffs in, you kind of, I would say, slow down economic development for agriculture, because that's the mechanism that grows us. Remember, South Africa is not supported by a government or government, and also foreign direct investments is not a big thing for us. We invest as farmers ourselves, and the moment you slow that down, you actually you put I would say a bit of it's like a slowing pot where you just went down with it, and that's the last thing we can afford. We need development, we need investment in food security, and that's agriculture. So a big play for us, but we're not down. We're not man down, we man up on this one as agriculture, and we do our uttermost. Impact, yes, big impact.
That's it for this episode of our special Nampo 2025 coverage, coming to you here from Bothaville in the Northern Free State. Until next time, goodbye.